I'm Danielle, your host of the Abridged to Motherhood podcast, the place where moms like you learn to thrive, not just survive through pregnancy, birth, and postpartum. I'm a birth and postpartum doula and a mom of two who's been where you are. My first pregnancy was filled with so much excitement, but it was also marked by stress, anxiety, and fear of the unknown. I thought I had everything mapped out, but when postpartum hit, I realized how unprepared I was for the physical, emotional, and mental toll of motherhood. It was overwhelming, lonely, and nothing like I imagined. When I found out I was pregnant again, I knew I needed to approach things differently. I made it my mission to not only prepare for postpartum, but to prioritize myself in the process. That shift changed everything. Now I'm here to help you do the same. Whether you're navigating your first pregnancy, feeling buried under endless advice, or struggling to figure out what you actually need for postpartum, this podcast is your safe space. You'll find practical tips, honest conversations, and expert insights to help you feel informed, supported, and empowered through every stage of motherhood. If you're ready to feel confident, prepared, and truly supported in your motherhood journey, stick around. This is for you. Hey friends, welcome back to the Abridged to Motherhood podcast. Today I have Amy Weinland Daughters, award-winning author and keynote speaker on the podcast. She believes in a world where what makes us different is the very thing that connects us instead of separates us. She brings that world to life by helping people reconnect to each other through the power of handwritten letters. She brings her wit, humor, and having written 580 handwritten letters to every single one of her Facebook friends to show you how you can find deep connections in some of the most unexpected places. And I'm so excited to have Amy with us today because I too love writing letters. I love getting mail, and I think this is a complete lost art. And I think that it can really help new moms in a really amazing way. So, Amy, I'd love to hear what first drew you to share about the practice of writing letters and why it became so meaningful to you.
Right. And thank you for having me on, Danielle. I'm thrilled to be here. Well, I was minding my own business when this all happened. That's the way I like to tell the story. I was a writer. I was writing about college football, among other things. I'd written a first book. And I literally just went on Facebook one day and looked up a girl I'd worked at a summer camp like 35 years ago. Hadn't had any contact with her for 35 years, but you know how you get a name, it just comes to your head. So very relatable. I type it in, voila, there she is, Dana. That's the girl's name. So I friend her since it doesn't really require any action on either our parts. She accepts my friendship request, and I don't really know if she remembers who I am. But so I go and do the obligatory scroll through her life, and I figure out, oh my God, Dana has overachieved with children. She has 5 of them. Wow. And she has one boy, he's the youngest. And right away, like post number 3, I found out that he was battling cancer at St. Jude in Memphis, Tennessee. So I knew that was serious. So as a mom, as a human being, as a person, I was like, oh my God, this is terrible. I'm invested in the story. So I started kind of following along with the story. I kind of feel like I'm overfeeling it maybe. She asked for people to pray. I kind of like to do that. So I do that and I just watch. He goes into remission. I'm like, oh good. So back burner. And then at the end of that year, the cancer came back and she's like, we're going back to Memphis. I was like, this is terrible. So I sit down at my desk and I'm like, on a Monday morning, I'm like, a lightning bolt from the heavens comes and hits me in the head. It's like, you know what you're going to do? You're going to start writing Dana, and the kid's name was Parker, little supportive cards every week and send them to the Ronald McDonald House. Now, look, I hadn't spoken to this girl still in 35 years. I hadn't hit like or comment on any of her stuff because I felt like that was disingenuous. She's fighting with her kid with cancer, never met the kid, and I hadn't written anyone a handwritten letter in probably 25 years because I grew up with that, but that
Mm-hmm.
wasn't something that carried over to my, you know, my middle-aged life. So I start writing these cards every week for about 10 to 12 weeks. It's like, we're thinking about you, we're praying about you, and I just, blah, blah, blah. Don't hear anything back, don't expect to hear anything back. But then you can see the post start to turn a little bit, and then unthinkably, and there are no good words for this, Parker, loses his battle with cancer at age 15 and passes away. I mean, complete devastation. And this had nothing to do with me. And I was really clear about that. But I was like, I think I should do more like and so it was like mini light bulb. I was like, I'm just gonna, I know this is crazy, but I'm gonna keep writing here because I just felt so compelled to do this. And I still don't know why. It's like the only way I can explain it is I knew I was being crazy, but I could not stop myself. So
Mm-hmm.
now though, Danielle, I'm like, where does she even live in Louisiana? Like, what's her address? And I can't ask for that. So I knew her husband was an attorney. So crazily, I just start sending the letters there every week. I just kept writing her. The letters get a little bit longer. I start, opening up about my life because what else am I going to say? There's only so many times you can say I'm sorry, which I said that every time. And then after about 4 or 5 months, I was like, you're crazy. You're nuts. You should stop doing this. But I didn't. And all of a sudden, on my birthday, we lived in Ohio at the time. I know you're in Ohio. I go out to my mailbox and there's this 10-page handwritten letter from this woman. And she opened up about her grief and she told me she wrote a whole bunch of stuff. It was 10 pages of a handwritten letter. And she said, I didn't think I was going to say half that stuff, but I feel good about it. And so this kicks off us communicating through the US mail for 2 full years, like no texts, no emails, none of that. We just write each other letters. And it creates this space. And she's not sitting in front of me. I have no idea what her reaction is to anything I've said. I don't feel like I have to respond to anything she says. And it creates this vacuum between the two of us where we just say whatever we want to. I look at my life from the outside in, completely cathartic. She's talking about her grief because when she's doing life with everyone else, if she's doing bad, nobody else seems like they're okay. She just writes me about the grief. And then the best part, Danielle, was we had no idea. Like, I didn't know how she voted. I didn't know her socioeconomic level. I didn't know like how she stood on gender issues. None of that. We just knew we were two moms writing each other through the US mail. We would say stuff like, I've never told anyone this before, but I know I can trust you. And the which is ridiculous, but the impact of those letters of writing Dana, and it's just kind of pivoted the way I looked at everything in my life. I was like, wait a second, what else, like untapped goodness, is on this list of hundreds of people who I've known to differing degrees, or maybe not even at all physically in my life? Like, what else is out there? And I'm like, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to go all world bananagrams and I'm going to write all these people. So I put everyone's name in a box and I just started drawing out names. I had stationery and a journal, and I thought I'd get to like letter 25 and like call it. But after I got to like letter 25 or 30, I was like, this is the probably the most important thing I'm ever going to do in my life. So I went from being a girl who hadn't written a letter in 25 years to someone who will absolutely not shut up about no writing. I wrote a book about it. I travel around the country and speak about it, and I will talk to anyone who wants to talk about it.
That is such a powerful story. And I feel like we never know for sure how much we're impacting someone when we are reaching out to them. And I know how impactful that was for me when I was going through my first journey with postpartum depression and anxiety, how much it meant to get a text, how much it meant when someone stopped me in the grocery store and asked me how I was doing. And I had a friend one year who, for Lent, she sent letters to someone every single day. And I had no idea. And I got one in the mail, and she just basically in each letter she told that person what she appreciated about them, and oh my gosh, it meant so much to me. I have that letter. I've kept it. I go back to it. When I was a teacher, I kept every little note my kids wrote to me, and now as a mom, of course, I do as well. So why do you think receiving that handwritten letter feels so different and so much more powerful than just a text or an email?
Right. And that's what I did not understand because I was not doing this with intention. And I really think that that made the results even more, not organic, but I mean, it was like a magical thing because I did not understood that I had this little tool in my human toolkits that I'd had along, that you have, that we all have, that your friend has, that it's just off the charts. And what's off the charts about it is people realize the sacrifice it took to do that for you. And they weren't doing it for everyone on Instagram, or they weren't, and there's nothing wrong with Facebook or Instagram or Twitter or X or TikTok. There's nothing wrong because that's a jump off point for a lot of different things. But the thing is, we're never treated individually intentionally. And so when, let's say you send me a letter, I'm on the other, you're doing this for your friends for Lent. And so I go out to my mailbox, and I know this because I have a lot of experience with this. I would before I even read what you said, I would hold that in my hands and I would realize, oh, wait a second. Danielle had to find an envelope. She had to get a pen. Wait, where's my address? Then wait a second. She has to lick the back of that nasty envelope. Wait, Where are the stamps? Nobody even has those anymore. Then you got to get in your minivan and drive across Ohio and find like where, for the love of God, is the post office, and where, where's the blue box where I drop this off. So I'm going to be like, I'm going to hold this thing in my hand that you held in your hand, very tactile, very intimate. And I'm going to be like, this is how much I matter, me individually, to another person.
Mm-hmm.
And like you said, and so my letters end up being meaningful because I had to fill 2 pages because that was the whole goal. And I did a lot of telling people what they meant to me. But even before they read those words, they're going to realize that you're going to sacrifice. You could have sent an email or a text, but you did this instead. They're going to be like, boom. Because the number one response I got from the 600 letters was what you just said. I will save that letter in a special place for the rest of my life, and I will get it back out and read it again when I
Yeah.
need it. And we all have that power.
Let's shift and talk specifically about the postpartum mama. I know you've got kids, you know how difficult that season can be. So, how could that be such a support for a new mom and not just receiving them, but also writing them?
Right. And I think that you just hit the nail on the head. There's something, when we, in the transaction of goodwill, we assume the assumption is that if I tell you how much you mean to me, then you're the one who walks away the most changed or the most benefit. But really, what I learned from this whole letter writing scheme was I was the person who was going to be the most changed from writing the letters. And that's not just feelings.com. There's science behind that. You know, the American Journal of Psychology, they saw a 20% reduction in stress and 20% more emotional clarity for someone who participates in handwritten journals or handwriting letters or notes to someone. So in terms, and what I love about you letting me be on your wonderful podcast is this is an arena that I've never discussed with anyone. Postpartum moms that have been removed from their regularly scheduled life and now have this dependent being on them. And as much as they felt like they were prepared for this moment, nothing in the world could have prepared them. But I'm going to tell you what, there is something that would be so therapeutic if this was, you know, put into that postpartum time period with even a commitment of writing 1 or 2 notes a week and just reaching out and writing 2 or 3 lines. It doesn't have to be a letter, and sending them out in the world. And maybe your little plan is, I'm going to say thank you to people who helped me in my baby journey. And maybe that lends you over to saying, I'm going to say thank you to people that I haven't seen in 3 years. Or I'm just going to reach out to people again and say something nice in these notes. Because what ends up is you're going to infuse your own self with hope. It's like the ultimate journaling because then you're sending it back and it's interactive at the same time. So you're spreading hope. You're creating your own gratitude meter is going to go up just by the simple act of doing this. And then you're going to see these results that's going to absolutely change the way you look at everything.
Yeah, new moms can feel so isolated. I know I did, and I had a winter baby too, so it wasn't like you said, I'm in Ohio. I couldn't go out to the parks and be around other moms. So it was so isolating. And I actually think this could have been a great way for me to kind of connect with some other people. And before we hit record, I was telling you I also like to write letters kind of as a form of therapy too, like to someone that maybe I couldn't get those feelings out, but I could write a letter and it's never sent, but it's a way for me to kind of release. Um, can you talk about kind of the emotional support and the self-care side of things that comes along with writing letters too?
Right. And I think, you know, absolutely, you're going to look at your life and your situation from the outside in by writing someone. Even a simple act, it's like journaling, but with a person on the other end of the transaction. Like you said, that person doesn't even have to receive the letter for you to receive the benefit of writing the letter. And I think it reorders stuff, because the difference between typing and writing, typing is super convenient and it's absolutely necessary, 100%. But forming letters with a pen and paper forces you to use both sides of your brain. This is more science, and it creates the act of, putting something down into an act of learning is because you're going to have to think more thoroughly. You're going to have to bottom out different thoughts, and then you're going to have to form the letter. So it's going to mean more to you emotionally in some way. It's like when people, I'm a writer, and they're like, do you handwrite or do you type? It's like handwriting notes. There's a lot of science. If you're in a class and you're handwriting notes, you're going to retain that information better. It's the same exact concept, but you're going to add the emotional component in it too. And it's going to absolutely change the way you looked at whatever you wrote about. And it's super important to note that you don't have to be a writer to do this. I'm someone who writes, but that had nothing to do with the impact of the letters on me or any of the recipients. All you need to have to, you know, use this tool in your toolkit is a human heart and a piece of paper and a pen, and a stamp is just a bonus.
Right, that's so, so simple. And some other fun things that I've done throughout my life and as a teacher too, I used to have my students, I taught freshmen. I would have them write a letter to themselves that they would open when they were seniors. And even in my business journey, some of my business mentors had me write a letter to myself like a year from now, where will your business be? And I found that to be very healing as well, too. I'm thinking a lot about how that could be a huge part of a mom's healing journey and growth journey as she enters into motherhood of what is life going to look like a year from now?
Right. And write your child a letter while the
Mhm.
child is this little dependent being who you're scared of and equally so invested in. You couldn't even imagine ever feeling that way. But write your child a letter. But the thing about this is what I've realized, because I've spoken to so many different groups and people, this has to be customized to your life, where it works for you. So if it's writing future letters, and I just thought of this, maybe you find somebody who knows in a similar pregnancy timing journey, and y'all become little pen pals, postpartum pen pals, and write each other once a week about what's going on, and let those letters cross back and forth. But there's a bunch of different ways this could pivot, but there's really no way to get it wrong. So whatever you feel like works is what you should do. Whether it's 17-page letters or 2 sentence notes, whether you mail them or don't mail them, I think the impact, especially on the postpartum mom, would be very similar, this therapeutic. But I think the biggest thing is all this makes you feel vulnerable. If you're going to send someone a note, even yourself, even if you're sending it to yourself or your sweet little baby, you know, you're going to feel vulnerable. And that's the thing about letter writing. You're going to sit down and you're going to, because I still write somebody every day and I still say the same thing. I wrote somebody today who I went to high school with who just retired as a teacher after 35 years. And I sat down to write her and I was like, oh my God, she's going to think you're ridiculous. And I've done this, Danielle, hundreds and hundreds, probably more than 1,000 times. So you got to take that and just kick it out of the picture. Because what's
Mm.
going to happen when you can get over that hurdle is going to be so, you almost can't gauge how good this is going to be.
I love the idea of the pen pals too, because I have some friends, that are no longer close in proximity that it could be a really fun way for us to keep in touch and even our kids to keep in touch as we're getting older. And I know my kids love getting letters in the mail. You also reminded me of something when you were talking about writing letters to our kids to open later on. And something that we did for both of my kids for their first birthday is instead of gifts, we asked everyone to write them a letter to open on their 18th birthday. And there are letters in there from people that are no longer with us. And how special that this little piece of them will be there when my kids are 18 and get to hear from their great grandparents or grandparents at that time.
When you need to share that message loud and wild, because that makes me want to lay in the ground in the fetal position and
Hmm.
sob. It is so beautiful. And you think about it, people my age, I have letters from my grandparents. I have letters from my parents. I have their handwriting. And that's the gift you're going to give that child. And I tell people this all the time, outside of a check for $1,000, which means more, not means something because it's a different kind of, vehicle. There's nothing that's going to be more meaningful than that. And the fact that it's handwritten, because like a video would be cool, but that could be wiped off a phone or something. But the tactile that your child is going to open these notes from someone who is no longer with us, but here's their handwriting. They held this in their hand and they meant it just for me. It's all those same things I said, but you're paying it forward into the future. It is just so incredible. I mean, I think that should be shared. You should share that far and wide.
Ah, thank you. I mean, I can't take credit for it. I saw it somewhere online and I was like, yes, this is what we're doing. They're one. They don't need stuff. And of course, people still brought some gifts or some money for their college funds, but nothing can be more meaningful than that.
No, and I'm going to share it too. That's just it's and and then in the context of that we could think about we could do that for adults. You know,
Yes.
we could say my sister's turning 30, we're or this girl who's a new mother,
Hmm.
she's turning 30 or whatever, 28, 35, who cares? But, let's all write her a letter or this we know this friend is just had a baby and she's at home. So instead of sending casseroles, now we're going to send letters. We're going to
Hmm.
send supportive notes to this woman who's trying not to lose her mind at also the best
Yes.
time of her whole life, all combined at once.
I went to a baby shower where a couple fun things they did was, well, one, silly notes to put on the diapers. So
Right.
when in the middle of the night they were changing them to make them laugh. But also, I went to a shower where we wrote encouraging notes and her mom put them in like a little photo album so she could flip through them on the hard days. And yes, there's just so much power in that handwritten message. But what I want to talk to moms about, because every time we bring up something on the podcast, I never want a mom to feel like it's something she has to do or it's going to cost her time and effort and all of these things. I want it to be something that's low key and not stressful. So, what would you say to her about that if she wants to start writing the letters, but without adding that stress to it?
Right. I think it's a lot of like a lot of other things in life. You would just have to say, this is the way I'm going to do it. And this is the right way and not and that's what I don't like about my story is it's overwhelming like 600 letters 2 pages each you're a writer like blah 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 that's fine like it's what the God the universe gave me this great story as a jump off point so I can have this conversation. It looks good on the one page people send out and say have Amy Daughters on your podcast 'cause she wants to talk about letter writing, that gets me in the door. But the thing is this is as simple as going to Target and getting little 3x5 note cards that don't even open with an envelope and saying, Dear Mom or Dear Danielle, 3 sentences, sign the note. That's it. And if you do it one time, that's great. It's whatever fits you. Maybe you start doing it and you're like, oh, I'd like to do this every other day. It just makes me feel good, or whatever that is. But I think it's like everything else in life, and as women, and especially as mothers, this is hard. Is that I'm going to do it this way because I feel like this is the right way for me to do it, and trusting that, and owning it, and going with it. And here's the other thing, guys: if you write 2 letters and you're done, peace out, great, because this is not, I wouldn't say make some huge commitment unless that's the way your personality is, because the last thing anyone who's a mom needs is to feel something bad about something, feel like they fell short in some way, feel like they didn't, you know do as much. I mean, one note or no notes, but if you're into it and then you realize what it does for you, then I'd say trudge forward past the vulnerability aspect.
Mm. That vulnerability piece is so huge, and it's something I talk a lot about with my clients on this podcast, on my Instagram, because vulnerability is powerful and it heals when we allow ourselves to be open. And that doesn't mean we need to be fully cracked open to every single person that walks into our life, but having a few trusted people that we can truly be vulnerable with. And the more we practice vulnerability, the easier it gets. But it is scary to get started. So if a mom's feeling worried about opening the floodgates, what would your advice be to her?
Be brief and sincere. Brevity is a personality thing. Either you have brevity or you don't have it. But my advice is just to be super sincere, trust what you feel, and then be super brief. And like you said, if it's somebody you feel like you want to really open up to, that's great. But if it's someone you want to just say thank you, and you can be very sincere and specific in 2 lines, and that be enough, and that opens you up, cracks you open just enough. But you don't want to do this yet. I still have that problem. I don't want to. if you're sincere, you're not going to say the wrong thing. But I think just brief, let yourself have one sentence, two sentences, it's going to have the same impact.
Yes, absolutely. It is as simple as we make it. Like you said, it doesn't have to be this giant commitment. It can just be that one or two lines, one or two letters. But I really feel in my, I'm a millennial. I feel like so many of us are really craving that simplicity. There's this turn back to, people are gardening again. They're making the sourdough. And this is just another piece of that is bringing
Right.
back that letter writing. We have technology and it can be a wonderful thing, but it can also make us feel more isolated in some ways. So I think we really are grasping for something that brings that connection back, and we want to be closer to our neighbors, and we crave that community piece. And this is just a part of that journey. And part of my goal as a postpartum doula and hosting this podcast is for people to become a part of that community. And sometimes it takes us starting it, but this is really cool as letter writing to continue that process and that community building. I'd love it if you would just share maybe one final message to the mom that's listening, and as a mom with wisdom and experience, and what would you want to say to her?
I would say to her, you have to trust yourself, way beyond I like the letter writing story because I did kind of, I don't know if I trust myself or my crazy side of myself, but like everyone else, I doubt myself. But if we could all just believe in ourselves just enough to take one step forward, because we all are good enough inside. We all have something great to share inside, but for that mom at home, out of her regular life, I would say trust yourself as a mom, as a wife, as a human being, as a partner, as a friend. Just trust yourself and believe in yourself just long enough to take one step forward. And I think, I'm a mom of older kids, but we have to remind ourselves, though, that we are 100% all in with our heart, doing the absolute best we can. So let yourself off the hook, people, because and I wish someone would walk in my office and tell me that right now too. Let yourself off the hook. You're doing the best you can.
Mm. Yep, everyone needs to hear that and have a little cheerleader in the back of their mind every day, but especially in postpartum because of the lack of sleep and you don't know what you're doing and all of the things. I know that's definitely what I needed to hear and continue to hear as a mom. So thank you for sharing that little piece of wisdom with us. For my listeners who would love to read your book or connect with you further, can you share all the ways that we can find you?
Right. I'm on all of the socials, but really the if you go to amydaughters.com, the website has all the information. And if you're interested in not just note writing, but anything else, and you want someone to discuss it before you kick it off or like share your first note, my email address is on there. I am 100% present and here to discuss that, and my mailing address is on my website. And if you want to just drop a line to me, I'll drop one right back to you and would love to hear from you. But it's amydaughters.com. Would love to connect with anyone.
Thank you so much again, Amy, for your time. And I have a feeling you'll be receiving a letter from someone very
Ooh,
soon.
I can't wait. And again, Danielle, thank you for letting me share the story and this message with your postpartum moms.
Of course. Thank you so much. Thanks so much for tuning in to the Abridged to Motherhood podcast. I'm so glad you were here today. If you loved this episode, I'd be so grateful if you could leave a review for the podcast on whatever platform you're listening on. Share it with a friend or snap a screenshot and tag me on social media. If you decide to leave me a review, go to abridgedomotherhood.com/review. That link is also in the show notes so that I can send you a little gift in the mail. Your support helps other moms to find the podcast, and it truly means the world to me. Remember, your motherhood journey deserves your care and attention. Until next time, keep showing up for yourself, Mama, and don't worry, I'm here to help every step of the way. See you soon.